So thank you very much, all of you, to joining during suppose working hours. And I'm very happy to share about a little about why we're doing this at temperature and a little about why I ended up doing this project. And the initial, like the idea that or the experience that started everything was how we leveraged cognitive load as a metric in Creditas, which is a past experience of mine. And today I will go briefly about what we did in terms of platform engineering and platform as a product, because we have two experiences that I think it relates quite well. And then we will see how we can leverage team cognitive load for somehow guiding our decisions, or at least having a proxy metric about value. So briefly, I am Aleix. I am based in Barcelona, currently CPTO at Temperature. I have been a team topology advocate for a while, and I put a lot of effort on engineering strategy. And for me, Temperature is not a product to leverage engineering strategy itself as well. So that for me is like everything connected, everything about socio-technical systems, and a little about my experience before joining Temperature. I was at ThoughtWorks Barcelona, as well as Creditas. This is the company I will be talking today, and then right now in Temperature. So before starting, I want to share our definition about team cognitive load and overload as well. So when I will referring to team cognitive load, is about the collective burden experienced by the group of people working together. We always talk about the team, so that's for us the minimum unit of working. And then we refer to overload to when the group's combined cognitive demands exceeds what they can do, right? So we will leverage these two definitions during this conversation. So I will talk you about the experience I had as a head of engineering using team cognitive load. This was 2021. The book of team topologies was published on 2019, and I kind of wanted to leverage several of the ideas of team topologies. And we kind of found the, that the platform investing that we were doing was a consequence of using team cognitive load and the team topologies practices, but was not the intention. It was more like a consequence of it, right? So today we'll talk about 1 year and a half experience. So only that you know, Team Creditas is a Brazilian company. It's a fintech one, which it has a lot of verticals, and everything is about loans. So only that you can see the size a little is or the product size. So maybe it helps you to get perspective of what we are doing is that the credit was the baseline of the company, and then they created multiple verticals, things like e-commerce, auto, real estate, insurance, or company benefits. Anything that you need on your life that requires credit, company offered you a product on top of the credit. That was the main uh, business model, right? And I was clear that company benefits. It means it's a B2B2C, and it has some nuances, because compared to others, when you are in credit for companies, you have different how to say legislations, and only that you know that we were around here. So the size, this is important because sometimes it doesn't apply if you are too small or you're too big. So only that you know that where we're talking. We're talking about a company of 3,000 people, where around 350 something it's about tech. We were offering products to external services, but also for internal teams, right? So we were about 40 teams. Only that you know, okay, why are we doing this? We're 40 teams at the end when I joined. Um, this is interesting because when you know that we have 300 people, we have 40 teams, and our strategy back then was, I will mute. Yes, right. The strategy is about merchant acquisition. The company was growing in multiple levels, but also we were merging and acquiring other companies. And this gives a little of problems down the road. And that became what we call that this is an oversimplification that is not the full reality, but it was all the runtime architecture was very different. Nothing was the same. Each part was different technologies, different runtime, different even clouds, and that became a problem. So the burden of integrating new products into the existing ecosystem boosted this platform engineering need. So it came from the business need. I want to merge and acquire companies faster. I don't want them to take a year to integrate. I want to take the less time as possible, right? So that was the main factor. It was not team cognitive load. It was a business need. The business need was about, I want to reduce the lead time to put up and running and all the products we do and after merger and acquisitions, for example. So there was these two levels, like we acquire a company and the product is accessible by the all customers, right? So people said, hey, we want to get into lead time, otherwise we're losing money and yada, yada, yada. Great. And before we started anything about platform engineering, that was the process. There was an operation team that get all the services, configured everything manually, made custom Terraform templates, and then they hand over that to the product team. That process was super slow because the ops team was the bottleneck, right? So here, the ops team had all the knowledge. They were the bottleneck. They had a lot of load on them. And then we have all the problems about handovering to other teams. So that was the pain. And we started to asking the ops team, what is your cognitive load? Why are the things that are happening to you? They share things like each service is different, custom Terraform code for each service. We have a lot of duplication, code duplication, and a lot of things that were causing this burn. And it kind of I'm guessing that if you have been a lot enough long enough in the industry, is that you know that okay, this is usually a pattern. And then kind of we became saying, hey, okay, we want to solve this, but what are the key success metrics that drive this? And we didn't use term cognitive load back then. We said, okay, we want to know which is the time to first deployment, how many times people are deploying per day, which is the lead time of deployment. Kind of Dora metrics style, which was quite on point. We want to be able to deploy microservices between 15 minutes. That was one of the good decisions, in my opinion, was about putting everything quite into the operational side kind of situation. Even though, and I will go back, this was human pain. So here we had human pain translated into um, systems metrics, which was a good first step. This was a good thing. Then we will see how it kind of was like unable to drive us other innovations, but this was a success of using these metrics. So the good thing about this platform team that we will call later foundations team is that they had all the knowledge about how to run this. They had all the pains, they understood all the needs, and they were able to kind of own this part. And they started to create an abstraction to help other teams to own this. Long story short, what happened is that everyone was different. So at the end, we decided to drop Terraform on Fargate and move everything to Kubernetes and a custom build tool internally. And then everything else that was acquired, everything was moved to Kubernetes on AWS. That was like the decision. And my opinion, it was a good one because the lead time was reduced. And the good thing is that by creating this abstraction on top of it, we were able to deliver a platform as a service, kind of a platform engineering approach. And this was great. But we didn't use technology. Even though we understood the team pains through their cognitive load about the things that they had in their mind to put everything together, we were able to create a good platform as a product. People were able to deploy everything. If it has like is in this stack, everything was on it as a product, and we were able to deploy quite fast without involving the operations teams that they became a platform team. That was great outcome. So the success metrics succeeded on this objective. There was no pain anymore on deploying. We had a quite large number. I think we didn't never succeed on having everything on Kubernetes, but I think it was like all the important ones were in Kubernetes. We were deploying it multiple times a day, and the lead time to deploy is 10 minutes. Success. And from here, even though it was a platform engineering effort and we did all of the things properly, something prevented us to keep evolving this. And that's when we started using other approaches. And even though this was hard because it was 2 years journey, this started before I joined and it finished after I joined, like 3 months after joining. This was interesting. and I want to go into the specific of the journey, that how we use team cognitive load and team topologies practices to drive some of the initiatives, which was this other part. So when the problem that wasn't making the product accessible, the problem became how we can improve the product. Even though you can run a product on production, it doesn't mean you understand the code. It doesn't mean that you can operate the code. It doesn't mean anything, right? So the other part was important because the value is about how you keep evolving and integrating that within the ecosystem of Creditas. So this is the part we started seeing, okay, how we can improve this, how we can help the people go faster, enhance everything, and so on and so forth. So as anyone have been here in the industry for long enough, they say that anything in business, everything takes too much. So we always think sooner, and we want these things faster for our customers and users, right? So the burden was moved. So before it was about running, now it became operating the products and services. So the interesting part is that the cognitive load shifted from one side to another. Because now, before maybe you were having one service a week, if you reduce all that into maybe a day, it means that now the teams that before were receiving maybe one service a week or two services a month, now they can have 10 microservices a week. It blows their capacity about they can understand everything and get used to the systems, right? So it kind of shifted. It was a good thing we had that one. We created another problem. So this has started to happen. Like, okay, I have a lot of things, I have a lot of load. Why I have to do this? I don't know if you can relate to any of these sentences, but I'm sure that I said several of them in my career. Like, can I ask for help for this, or I should take everything? I feel I'm misunderstood about my needs. Everything in here, it's more like how we feel as people. It's everything feels too much, right? So that is the pain that we start noticing. And before the pain was controlled, it was part of one team, it was more ops. So you have kind of the problem control in one side. After creating this platform, everything was spreading for all the company. It's like everyone was feeling this. It kind of the speed of one side created a bottleneck in the other side. So we started asking people and we started doing some surveys on this. And this what we found is like people never complaining again about running things. It was good experience, nothing was needed more here. They were started to say that they had problem operating. A surprise for me, it was that testing was good as well. I thought that testing was a problem, but indeed the survey said that no, we don't have any problem on testing. The problem is about production. And then some things about integrating, because when you have to match many microservices, you have sometimes problem about connectivity and kind of things that happen in that area. So it was a good finding. So we start kind of move the attention into operating, and that was a great insight that we found, because you start digging in, like you forget everything else and you start focusing thanks to the survey. Like, okay, now as engineering leadership, we started to narrow down, okay, forget about all this area. Let's go into breaking. And we start asking people, like, what is causing this? And a surprise for me is that we had more microservices than people. Like, kind of, we have at least one microservice and more per developer in the company. It was like one developer created their own microservice for all the time. And it was quite interesting because it meant that, okay, why this is happening? And one of the finding is that because running new things was more easy than maintaining the others, there was like we made things easier for people, like do everything from scratch in a new microservices than understand the old one and refactor it. That was one of the consequences about moving making things easier in one side. It was a consequence that we didn't envision in advance, but it was a good understanding of, okay, why people prefer to create new services and deploy new things than maintaining the old ones. And then they started from, hey, this is hard to debug production issues. Systems fail all the time. Monitoring, we are manual fixing everything, and kind of everything becomes a distributed monolith. That insights came from this about understanding where the cognitive load from them were causing. And this was kind of the summary in the big 10, in the big part. But it was interesting because the foundations team kept improving the same metrics. They didn't move into operability. They keep saying, okay, we will to keep improving run, the compute and running new things. And it was interesting, like, okay, why we're doing this? The problem is somewhere else. But yes, but we have all the metrics monitoring that area. So if you have a system that just are monitoring one data, but you're ignoring the others, you put the focus in that area only. And that became a problem for us. We tried to create awareness, we put this on the table, and they did some things which they wanted to help. But compared to before, because they didn't feel the pain, they didn't know how to run this. Where were the things that were important? So what they did is like, we provide you tools. I don't remember right now if it was in Relic or Datadog, but they provided us like a Elasticsearch, Logstash, Kibana stack for each tribe. They provided us like New Relic. That didn't work. Indeed, because we kept saying, hey, this is not working, they said, okay, we will migrate everything to Datadog. I don't remember right now it was from New Relic to Datadog or the Datadog to New Relic. The summary of this is that it failed. It failed heavily because we were adding tools again to a problem that they didn't understand yet. And then we would start digging into, hey, we need to loop into the developer's journey to integrate these into the platforms. And that is what we find out is that people, when some book is reported, everyone used CloudWatch. CloudWatch is improving. I have to admit, after some years, they didn't have the best tooling, but they used another tools that they were not expecting as a platform team, a foundations team, sorry. So the thing is that because they didn't know how to use it properly, they started to use logs because it's what they are used to. And you see here that there is a step about deploying a service. More than half of the deployments per day weren't about new features. They were about adding logs to understand what was going on in production. So it kind of make a false signal on deployments per day on the platform team, and we didn't understood fully what was going on within the teams. So this is the cycle that I was seeing all day. Like people go to CloudWatch, don't find the info, add the console log, monitor again, and this loop forever, right? That was people was burnout because they were unable to understand the things. And you can probably say, okay, but now then train people on New Relic, train people on this and this and that. The cognitive law didn't say that the problem was actually this. But the problem is that, well, there's the summary. Like compared to the run, Foundation still didn't have the experience on operating the products. Remember that at the beginning I said we have e-commerce, car selling, benefits. All these products have very different needs, different behavior, different everything. So you kind of not predict how the products will behave, and it's very hard to create anything for each product. So it is very. If I have the foundations teams, I will be in a very bad or frustrating situation because it is not achievable by the product by the foundations team by itself. More if you're not super funded. Usually, founding teams they are half. We have 10 people, a little more, but usually you don't have everything needed to support 100 or sorry 400 developers by the time we were there because we were growing. So we kind of did again the cognitive load assessment. We moved from one team to multiple teams. We kind of start to see patterns that is not about one team having issues, but in the same tribes, we saw patterns like, okay, why people are having this kind of shared issue. And this was great, at least for me as head of engineering, because then I can see, okay, I can do something that will impact multiple people. Because if I have the problem about each team be different, then it's very hard to invest because it means that every team will have a different situation. But because I can say, hey, I have this pattern, I can do something that will impact these many teams, and this will be the multiplier of the return of investment. So that was a good thing for us. Like we can do something to help multiple people. And from there, we started to dig in again, like what is the thing? Why operating is? And then we had some hypotheses, but the summary is this. Resiliency, everyone complained about this, was not the cause. The cause was understanding the domain and agreeing in solution. We were in a banking, let's say. So we had transactions, know your customer, regulation. We had a lot of things. And the thing that happened is that instead of having all the teams agreeing, all the teams had to learn all the domain all the time in the different phases. That caused that people start adding things that break each other's services all the time. So that was the thing, is like by helping people to gather from operating cognitive load, asking why is operating cognitive load a problem, we have the policy about the business knowledge and the system problems like resiliency. We identified that the real problem was understanding the domain. So teams with multiple shared domains, domain-driven design 101. So this is kind of what we ended up doing. This is very the summary. But we founded a Tribe platform team. Compared to a foundations team that is more platform engineering style in terms of providing tools to run and monitor services, we created a Tribe platform team. And the Tribe platform team was very much into in the space of the business unit, understand the main challenges of the teams to deliver faster software, and then we will minimize this cognitive load. And because it is specific to the tribe, that's why we invested in this team in this area instead of trying to a team to do for all the how to say all the business units. The stars, this is like a way to represent that. You see here, it's a platform. This foundations team offers services for these other teams, right? So what we do is that with the stars, we say this team is using the platform. And I do this because we did in purpose to add the platform in two teams and not in one, to really see if it's helping or not. Because we want to understand the difference. Like if a team is using the platform, it's really improving, or we should stop investing in the platform itself. And even though we had key success metrics, they were very broad or very temporal. Things like the time to resolve an issue in production, number of issues reported by end clients. Here we group in two types different. One was new issues and common issues. What we would try to do is like the same issue shouldn't be done twice. If there are new things, it's because we are deploying to production and we should not be afraid of maybe breaking production in some areas, please not in transactions and banking, maybe in others, okay. But repeating the same bug was what we wanted to prevent, right? And then, and this was because of the micro distributed monolith, we wanted to reduce the number of shared issues or improve the resiliency at the end. But interestingly, the way to resolve these issues in production was to move not say core, but shared capabilities to one team. Because what happened is that people had too many contexts in their head and so on and so forth. So that's what happened at the end. We saw an improving on cognitive load in more areas than we expected. Things like team one was like, hey, I am super great. We integrated fast. We had a good collaboration with the platform, the Tribe platform team. We reduced almost to zero the issues in production thanks to this. The team three was catching up. And then we saw team two still experimenting the same issues as before. So it kind of, we said, hey, it is improving into teams. The team is working thanks to this. And then we found this pattern about tribe level testing, slow rolling up of the things. And then suddenly, because we were talking all the time with the VP of engineering and the CTO, we started replicating the same thing into other business units. I will admit that this didn't succeed as I expected. I will tell you about this later. Because the assessment of all the company, it was very tough on the leadership because we were doing surveys by ourselves. We didn't have support of the data team, for example. The data team had a lot of things on their plate. We don't want to wait on them to support us. So we had a lot of things on us to run everything, and we needed to upskill all the leaders on this practice in order to make that available for all the teams. So it kind of became quite the one business unit approach, and it didn't fully catch up for the rest of the organization. That was a problem. But regardless of that, we did a test, and we found that operating was a problem, and we found other tribes that having the same problem about using CloudWatch instead of the ones provided by the foundations team, and then we kind of adopted this approach for the foundations team. And the foundations team started to use more surveys, talk to teams, involve them on the conversations, and not assuming too much. They became very good at this. They needed to have the space also to learn, and it was a great way to move from local learning to company learning, even though you cannot do everything for everyone, like the adoption curve. We had a good adoption, but it didn't fully adopt everyone, right? But it was a great start. So we start exporting this platform pattern to other business units saying, hey, you can do this, but these are the anti-patterns. Things like you shouldn't move everything onto the platform team. It's not a backend for front-end pattern. This is not what you need to do. You need to understand the key business, how to say, you need to understand the key use cases that you want to move into the platform. You need to fully understand the pains of that tribe. You should not assume things and then only then start investing in the platform team if it's really impacting through some metrics. We suggested to use cognitive load because otherwise, as it happened to the foundations teams, because you are ignoring what is causing the cognitive load, you maybe are over investing in one area and forgetting about the others. So it helps you to have a high level overview and don't miss opportunities. That's I would say was the main one of the main problems about focusing too much on operational metrics and not human metrics. Kind of team cognitive logic helps you to understand which is the human problem now. Um, so how we were measuring cognitive load back then. We were doing this. We had bespoke or custom surveys. We were doing that every month or every 3 months, plus retrospectives. We kind of had this theme in the retrospectives, like, hey, ask about these topics because they are showing up in the survey. If these change a lot, maybe it's the time to run it again. That happened. This happened multiple problems. And at least I will tell my problems as a head of engineering that I was running this. On one side, I have the NPS. It applies all the time, but for me, it was not actionable. Either people tell like there is a problem, but sometimes it's like, hey, I need a level down thing. So I need a lot of conversations to pull things. So we didn't use NPS much because the value we got from there was not enough. But I will be honest, there is no customization. It works out of the box, and the effort is nothing because it's a very easy survey. On the specific metrics, on the other side, the time validity is very specific because once you succeed, you kind of all the work you did to put all that metrics, all those dashboards, kind of they are there. Or either you need to maintain them, and it's also a problem. But they are super actionable. That they are like you want to measure this, you want to improve that, so they are very on point. That was very great. But you need a lot of customization. If you don't have support from the data team, sometimes you need to upskill people first to be able to use these dashboards. So there are some complications. And the effort at the end is like, sometimes like, is it worth to measure everything or just do it? And by the time you did it, sometimes people move into gut feeling because sometimes it's not worth or they don't have the skills to do all of that, right? But then we found this mix about team cognitive load. They were not fully time valid because it was a bespoke survey, so we needed to keep evolving it to explore more areas. Uh, they were actionable in some sense, in terms of we were able to spot the areas of criticality, but then we needed more digging in later through retrospectives. The customization needed is not that much because at the end it's like you kind of found a survey that works good enough and then you keep running it. But then analyzing the results, creating the report, communicating everything, at least for me, I knew that during the Q1, Q2, all the quarter plannings, that is where you want to measure everything to know what are the risks for the next quarter. It was very painful and very human dependent. So If the key people were not in the process, we knew that this will not work. And this is kind of why we started doing temperature. It's like why I want to have. So the next time I need to do this, I don't. It's not as painful for me as before. And me joining Manuel and Laura, we found another approach that I was surprised by this because I didn't expect it in the first place. But Laura Weiss, she is a doctor on psychology, and she developed this scientific method. She was able to came into a approach to analyze team cognitive load that works for it is valid for a very long time, and is able to go into very specific things. We will see them in a second. If you use temperature, you know about them already. But they are super actionable. This is the area we need to improve. You ask people there, and then you don't waste time in trying to understand where you should look at it. Really points you into on the team pains. And then you don't have any customization needed. We are giving that out of the box. And for you, you just add the people, we run the surveys, we collect the results, and then we present you. So that was what I was missing to make that at the scale. I think that in order to roll up to all the company without people needed to train all the people on this by themselves. So how we achieve these 4 points that are able to run. And we have 24 drivers. And the interesting part is that if I had this before, we could see that we have four classes of cognitive load. We have these constructs, which is composition, roles, culture, and the specific drivers. When I talk about the actionable, it's because we're able to go into the specific, like your team has a problem on role load, or your team has a problem on use of information, or a solution alignment. So by pointing into the problem, you can start creating actions into improve cognitive load and measure the improvement, right? So in our case, the problem was role load. People weren't able to keep with the problems because every time it was happening, was preventing us to improve the systems. We weren't able to align on the problem statement. We were not aligned. And then if you do something at the team level, you're breaking something at tribe level. It was a huge pain. And the solution was not systems. It was team coordination, way of working, how we involve business and product into the thing. And that's how we solved the things. It was a human process, a human problem, and systems was kind of a consequence, right? And then it was contextual. We had, if you need to run a mobile application and a website and a service and understand the regulation of the Brazilian banking system and understand how to do a proper know your customer, that is very tough. So with these 3 points, we understood that we needed to improve into, we need to be committing less on the quarter planning. We had to align more with business and involve the team earlier, not later. And then we need to move some of the complexity about the problem that is shared between teams into a proper place. And with these 3 pointers, we were able to create that in Tribe platform team and improve a lot of stuff at the same time. I am about to finish because I want to give you a lot of time for questions. But this is at the end what I would like to have. It's like, for example, this is an example for a management team. Things like, hey, these are your problems. This is what you find in temperature. And this is where you need to start doing actions. That is great when you're at team level. But what I really needed as head of engineering was this, like a way to have all the teams and all the different levels of problems, and then start saying, okay, I see patterns here. Maybe I should start with the team characteristics and then start zooming in why the things are happening here, and then invest in these areas, and then track if they are improving or they are becoming worse. In this example, this is frictional. We made that, for example, the benefits team is having a hard time. And then you can track like why is having a hard time. It's because maybe they have more scope because some key team members left. And then you start having the right questions without needing to involve all the team and stopping the machine, right? So you can start having the information. So here we for the last year we have improving the product in a different ways. And we started with the SaaS. And I put here the pricing because that's the thing is that we found that the temperature works better after 10 teams. If you are less than 10 teams, usually we found that you are able to manage everything by yourself. You maybe know all the terms of the problem of the teams, and we want to have a very generous free plan because that's what we want to give back to the community. When you want to self-manage your teams, we're charging 100 euros per month per team. We have a discount for annual, but we have a cap because after 50 teams, the value for us is like it's great. It doesn't matter if you have 50 or 100, you already have the value you can get is it's almost the same for us because you have a lot of complexity already. That's what we expected. Like, okay, when you have more than this, you're fine to pay us this cap. We don't see the need of going further. We did this because of the next slide. We found that the main pain of our customers that they start using cognitive load is not the only the doing the survey, understanding cognitive load, all the scientific method behind, but what they do with this information. And some people, but we help you to point, okay, these are your problems, but we are helping people saying, hey, Alish, thank you. Now I know your pointers, but I need help. Either because I am a manager and I don't have time for the running the sessions, I don't have the availability to make those, or I'm lost on how I can influence my direct report or my boss on this. And we started experimenting with these two plans. People like more the standard at the beginning, where we offer unlimited teams. So you don't need to pay above the SaaS. It's included already on the enabling services pricing. So you get already unlimited. And what we found is that by providing learning units, where learning units is something like, hey, we detect that you have these cognitive loads and we upskill your team on those areas. But more importantly, people are saying, hey, Alish, I want you the enabling units, which is kind of a consultancy basics. Like, hey, I sit with you. You explain me all your context. You explain me all your complexities. We have all the cognitive load. Let's do a plan together to overcome your challenges. Usually with 10 units of each is good. There are few companies that, because this is more like you have 10 teams, 20 teams that you want to influence, it works. And then if you want to move into more teams, we have more people that support all this journey. But usually people start small. That's why people usually use a standard. So that's what we found in temperature for the last year, is that able to, where I wanted to give you all the journey that they had with Team Cognitive Load, which is using it as a human metrics was great because only using systems level kind of puts you narrow in one area and lose perspective. So it helps you to have perspective. It helps you to prove that investing on platform teams is worth. It kind of impacts the people. And then the platform teams can move from specific areas to what is more important for streamlined teams to deliver faster. But we understood that this is not enough. And there are several companies that need our support and saying, hey, Alish, I understand everything, but I am alone here, or we are very few, we're in a tough situation. Can we delegate something on you? And then we are here to support, like, yeah, sure. We can prepare just learnings. We can help you on preparing the business case or whatever you need. So we are in the next phase about helping you even farther. That being said, I don't want to have more time. I want to have an open conversation. So thank you very much for listening until now. Let me stop the recording. I will share everything in the slides. I will share the links so you have everything. And looking forward to have this discussion. So yeah.